what's ever free. We talk about decentralization and then annihilation. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Litecoin, your coin, blockchain, baby. Mondays at 1600 hours Eastern Studio A.
Deep understanding must arise during these times of unparalleled deceit. A view into the depths of society upon which this country has fallen. A storm brews upon the horizon. It's been said that those that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear will play a paramount role in the furthering of humanity and civilized society. But can civilized society and humanity survive the coming conflicts not seen since a dawn of time in ages bypast? But you can find true forms of information and knowledge in abundance at revolution.radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the globe. Stand upon the right side of history.
General Homer, you've got to get us out of here now! I won't let you down. I won't let you down, son.
Revolution.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi there, welcome to Sunday Night Live, and coming in live from London tonight, we're going to talk about all things magic. I have guests Lisa Luna, magician, and magician Brian Barrott. Welcome you guys to the show.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. That's really good.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Yeah, glad to be here.
Oh, cool. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
Good, out there in America. So we're going to start off a show. We're just going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about magic and defense magic and what to do if we're attacked by someone else. And, I always find that my Djinn steps forward if I'm, in the middle of a dream and somebody goes astral and comes after me. My Djinn kind of comes out like a little Alsatian. Is that normal for Djinn, Brian?
Yeah, it depends what sort of relationship you have with the Djinn, obviously. You will find that your Djinn is extremely protective, yeah, because, that is how they are, to put it bluntly. Yeah, it's, that is one of their main duties.
And
however,
how...
but you must have a good relationship with the Djinn, if that makes any sense.
I've been pretty much ignoring mine, so it was a shock when I was attacked and out it popped, and it does it quite a lot. Even sometimes when I don't know I'm being attacked, it kind of booms out, just, like having a pet or something. It's nice. I'd like to thank him. How do you go about that?
Well, once again, it's a question of it's known as the silent inner voice, really. What is probably protecting you is something known as the Quarim, which literally translates to something meaning double. Yeah, okay. It is your double, and to get a good relationship with it, one has to, if you like, cultivate a certain level of piety. Now, there's many ways to do this. Sort of like devotees will use the Quran. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Quran. You can read sort of Sanskrit. You can read sort of very deep religious texts, and you can develop this piety. And then once you've developed this piety, and the Djinn understands that your path is of a certain way, then the Djinn will behave within that structure that you are assimilating yourself to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like.
What about conditions or consequences?
Sorry.
What about conditions or consequences or offerings, like when they help you? Are there certain conditions that something you have to do in return for their help?
Well, okay. How it generally works is like this: is that your Djinn is a go-between between yourself and if you like, the guardian angel, yeah, so to speak. How you behave? Are you behaving in the realm that you should be behaving, or are you, if you like, breaking what Crowley said is your true will? Okay, and if you are breaking your true will, the same creature that can help you is the same creature that can sort of like deny any form of progress in reality. Djinn magic is extremely complicated because one has to take full responsibility, and not only that, you have to take responsibility for listening to the entity, and this obviously is done through meditation, reduction of the ego, and obviously respecting who you are dealing with. Yeah, okay. Like, for example, one of the easiest ways to communicate to that silent voice is maybe using the tarot or some device such as that. I was shown many years ago how to use the tarot, and essentially it's a very good medium. Once you get used to using the tarot, then you can sort of step up a little bit, and you can use a crystal. Yeah, the crystal really is for you to concentrate on, and for you to sort of like have a mental envisionment of what the entity is saying. Beyond that, once you get used to that, then you can move to, say, an obsidian block where you concentrate very strongly, and you use the obsidian block to once again communicate with the Djinn entity. But I mean, all of this takes years of discipline. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But it starts with understanding when that if you like, that consciousness is speaking to you. Yeah, it is described as almost a whisper. Yeah, okay, and once one develops that, one can sort of pay attention to it and build a relationship with that internal power. Yeah. And it's amazing what it can do, because when I wrote my book, I was given spells, I was given access to information, which very few people have had any form of information about. And quite simply, that was given to me, but via Djinn energy, by the Djinn. But I'm saying that one has to be devout, one has to be sort of pious, one has to sort of stay away from the ego. And when one can do this, then one gets a clearer command, from these entities. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mine came after I went through that portal, as you know, I talked about in the past. And what I found interesting, mine showed me what it was like to be dead, and to journey through his eyes. But I thought he would change his appearance. He looks like Pinhead off Hellraiser without the pins. And I thought that's troubles me a bit,
Well, yeah, but I mean, essentially, they will appear to you how you want them to appear. However, what people don't understand is that if they do appear to you in a guise that you are not happy with, you can always ask them to change their material form.
Oh,
okay?
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but many people don't know this. So essentially, if you find the form too frightening, or you find the form sort of like in any way disturbing, you can say, "Can you change your energy form?" Yeah, and it will change its energy form, which
Right.
is which is very interesting. Another thing as well is quite often Djinn may not appear as what you imagine. It may just appear as a room. It may just appear as an object. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Or it may appear as a situation. Yeah. So it's understanding how to connect with that sort of feeling that it's trying to portray. Yeah. I mean, one of the best ways to do that is the dark meditation technique. I don't know if you practice that. Have you practiced the shadow? Well, the shadow meditation technique. Have you tried that?
I haven't heard of that, Brian.
Is that like shadow work? Is that the same thing as shadow, or is that completely different?
It's on the same track, but it's a little bit different. I mean, essentially, what you do is you, when you meditate, instead of going to a higher state of consciousness, you dig, or you imagine yourself going down a stairway into the ground. Okay, yeah, all right. So you imagine yourself going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this stairway, and you smell the earth, you smell everything, and everything that you associate with the dark. You can even sort of like see the flames that allow you to see the passage, but you just keep doing this and doing this and doing this until you meet the entity, and the entity will come. Now, the entity can appear physically. It can just appear as a room. It can appear as a part of your life, and from that, you get you then get what the energy is behind that. Yeah, it can sometimes even appear to you as somebody that you know. And once again, if that happens, it's advised to actually say, can you change the energy field? Yeah, okay, and it will change in front of you, which is quite interesting.
So what is the stairs? I had a dream about that actually last night, going downstairs. Like it didn't end this staircase.
Yeah, but essentially,
it sounds like the underworld.
Yeah, you did it by accident. You did the exercise by accident. You went down by the stairs. You went as far as you could go down the stairs, and then eventually you probably met something, or you ended up in a room. Yeah, and or even a room.
Yeah.
And then from that room, you have to understand what that room is saying to you.
Right.
Okay, yeah. You know, it's because the Djinn are quite difficult. They won't often tell you what you presume they're going to tell you. You have to work out what
So
they're
is
actually going to say.
is the staircase linked with the Djinn?
Well, it's essentially it's a metaphorical sort of like, if you like, technique. People use lifts. People use staircases. Some people actually physically dig. Okay, yeah,
Right.
and they
Sounds like
dig and
go
dig
into
and
the
dig.
underworld.
Yeah,
Is that the
'cause
same
that's,
thing? Going to the underworld, taking a trip to the underworld, like how witches do whenever they go to their different degrees. Is that basically the same thing?
it's basically the same thing, except that you're going for your Djinn, because the Djinn
Right.
is very much buried in your subconscious. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So you know, so essentially that's what you do. Yeah, and obviously the deeper you go within yourself, or the deeper your stairwell goes, the deeper you are getting to contact with the entity. Yeah. Okay. There is another way you can do it, but this requires a great deal of skill, and that is essentially you find a room with a plain wall, and you put a light behind you, usually a candle, and you reflect your bodily figure onto that wall. Okay, yeah. And so you have the shadow in front of you, and you just stare at the shadow, and eventually the shadow will actually start moving in a way that you have no idea about, because it's starting to move independently to you. And that's another way of contacting your Djinn. One has to be extremely mentally stable to do this, you know. But on saying this, it's sort of like you can also help your Djinn by sending sigils to them into the shadow, or sort of like, you know, you can sort of use prayers, or you can use energy to feed the Djinn. That's also another very good way of doing it. But it's a way that one should do when you actually have, if you like, you know, already made contact with your Djinn through another way, possibly the digging into the ground way. But once you've done that, and you understand what your Djinn is, and you understand you can control the energy field around it, then the next stage is to do the shadow work, and that's if you have the bravery to do that is a very easy way to contact one's Djinn. Okay, I don't know if you've ever tried that.
Shadow work. What's that?
Well, you put a candle behind you.
Oh, I
and
see.
you
Okay.
Yeah, and you match it, and you reflect it onto the wall, and then you concentrate on the shadow, and eventually the shadow will start making other forms, which are not
Right.
you, and that's the Djinn.
I went down the spiral staircase, and then I found myself in a room, and it was with other people and with some kind of entity, and I couldn't hold my shape. I couldn't hold my shape or my consciousness. And I started asking who was he and why was I there? And I knew it was making the rest of the people uncomfortable. And then just I couldn't hold myself, and I went back to my physical body. Was that linked with him then, the Djinn?
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that would be a very powerful connection. But you know, you have to go back into your mind and try and find out what was trying to be said to you, and why it was essential that you went to that room. Yeah, you know, what was the color of the room? What was the smell of the room? What was the energy of the room?
It was very silver. Everything was silver. He was silver. everyone was silver, everything looked silver, and then it got very, very cold, and I looked at everyone, they seemed to be wrapped up, apart from me. It was just very silver, bright white, and cold, icy.
And cold icy. And sort of, and what did you get from that? How did you feel when you were there, apart from cold? I mean, how did you feel spiritually? How did you feel mentally?
Yeah, I felt okay. I was very aware of not being able to hold still, and I was aware that I should really be quiet and just listen, but I kept asking questions. I'm naturally curious, and because of that, I couldn't hold form there, and I was aware of that I was somehow screwing up because I couldn't hold myself in the picture, if you know what I mean. My consciousness kept coming back to where I was in bed, and
it takes practice. You know, it takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, it doesn't happen overnight.
So the being was my Djinn.
Yeah, the being was your Djinn. And
why was there other people sharing him? Why?
Well, remember, you know, you never get one Djinn. You know, there's always a, you know, sort of like there's the Djinn, generally speaking, are sort of family creatures, or they are sort of like, you know, they are creatures that you know, it's in the Bible, you know, they say we are legion, yeah, okay. So when you meet one of these entities, generally speaking, there's always quite a few more, yeah. However, they may not be in physical form. You know, you know, there could have been some that are in physical, and there could have been others that were actually taking the shape of the room as well, yeah. And also, remember, the coldness was the energy. There could have been some that were actually providing the coldness as well, yeah. So, you know, you have to, when you're in this state, you have to be able to read every aspect of the experience, and then from that aspect of the experience, then you understand what the entity is saying to you.
Oh, yeah? I see. Yeah, I did go back there again. I mean, I did go back there, but again, I screwed up by asking questions. I think I asked it, was it Yahweh? Then it answered in the negative, and it kept shape-shifting a bit, his face. And I noticed, you're right, it did match my Djinn, in that my Djinn's skin has that white, icy kind of, you know, that whole thing is similar, you know?
Yeah, I mean, instead of asking it questions about who it is, what it is, etc., is maybe ask, you know, what it wants to teach you.
Right.
Yeah, you know, because you know, sort of like it's sort of, you know, imagine you're trying to give me a message, yeah, and I keep asking you, you know, oh, how are you, Christine? How's the kids? How's the thing? And you can't give me the message, yeah, okay. Eventually, it's going to stop trying to communicate with you. And then hence it's going to send you back, you know, which is the thing. So usually when you're in that kind of dynamic, that you are to listen. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
You know, sort of, but you know, like you said, you like to ask questions.
So do the Djinn, I am very ignorant when it comes to Djinn and working with them and stuff, so please bear with me. But so you said that more than one Djinn is assigned or with a person. Do they go to multiple people? Do they work with multiple people, or do they just kind of stick with one person, or do they change?
Well, it depends how sort of like advanced you are, really. Yeah, okay, as a person. If you are a high adept, of which I know a few, they literally have thousands of Djinn. Okay, I mean, literally how it works is that the Djinn, if you like, the easiest way to understand the Djinn is either in a military term or in like a royal family term, So like you have the king, you have the queen, you have the sort of princes, you have the princesses, you then have the lords, you have the ladies, you have the vice, the vice chairmans and stuff like this. You have a complete myriad of Djinn. It's highly unlikely you will ever speak to a king, okay, yeah? But you may speak to one of its emissaries, yeah? You may speak to one of its representatives. So I mean, a lot of it is very much dependent on what your, if you like, your level of sort of like consciousness and achievement is. But the other thing as well is if you think, oh, well, how could I meet the Queen? Well, unless you're a member of royalty, it would be virtually impossible. Or the other way, you would have to do something exceptional to meet the Queen. Yeah, okay. And it's exactly the same when you're meeting one of the higher Djinns, is that you would have to have something exceptional for it to be interested in, or you'd have to behave in an exceptional way for it to be interested in. So, that's the other difference with it as well. But you're much more likely to speak to one of its representatives than you are likely to speak to sort of like one of the higher levels of Djinn. But the thing is I would strongly recommend that you only deal with the Djinn that wants to contact you. Right. Okay? Because if you don't, it's like you banging on the door of Buckingham Palace. I want to speak to the Queen. I want to speak to the Queen. Yeah. Someone's going to get annoyed. Okay.
Right.
Yeah?
That makes sense. So you're not automatically assigned a Djinn. You're requesting to speak to one, and then if they feel like it, they come to you. Is that right?
Well, more or less. If you're at that level of consciousness, if you're at that level of consciousness, I mean, the Djinn is always with you. It's the same way as the angel is always with you. But the one thing that like I said, sort of just understand when it's speaking to you. Yeah. And the only way that you can do that is through meditation, using a black mirror, using a crystal, using the tarot, using something like this. And generally speaking, they will come to you. But you have to remember they are tricksters as well. Okay? Indian friends of mine, I usually spend at least 6 months of the year developing in India. And a lot of them believe that the Djinn are nothing more than irksome children. Yeah, okay, they love having fun, yeah, and it's usually at your expense. So one has to sort of, sort of be able to take that in your stride, so to speak, and not get annoyed and not get angry, because essentially, they will feed off that. If they can see that they can get you very angry, then they will continue to keep getting you very angry, because essentially you're giving them free energy. But if you're working with them the same way that you work with irksome children, then yeah, you'll have a fantastic relationship with them. And occasionally they'll do pretty sort of childish things, like steal your keys, which can be really irksome. You wanted to go out the house and you can't find your keys because they've stolen them. Yeah,
And are you supposed to have like a loving relationship with them, or no?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the idea. I mean, like my poor wife, my long-suffering wife. Literally, she's been kept up all night by them while I've slept. Okay. They will quite often go into another room and decide to knock everything around while I'm asleep, yeah? And one night my wife was so annoyed with it, she went into the room and screamed at them and told them to stop because she wanted to sleep, yeah? and they did. They got their energy. They were quite happy, and they went back to sleep. But literally, this is what they do. I mean, when I was wanting to go out, I was late for work, and I couldn't find my keys, and I had to ask it to return the keys. That was quite funny. And I said, look, come on, you've had your joke, return the key. And literally in the other room, I heard click, and the keys were put back on the table. So yeah, they are like children. So you have to be very you have to be very playful with them. Yeah, and you have to not take offence, and you have to not be upset all the time, because essentially their idea of time and space, etc., 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 is completely different to ours, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah, of course.
most Djinn will live for at least 2,000-3,000 years. The only Djinn that contact humans tend to be younger Djinn. Older Djinn don't contact us. All right, okay. Unless there is a specific reason for that, but it's generally the younger ones, and the younger ones tend to be the most trouble. If you speak to the sheikh, when he tells you about doing exorcism and things like this, Christine's a very good friend of the sheikh. It's always the younger Djinn he's exercising, and generally speaking, he's exercising them, and they're not really understanding that they're actually hurting the person, which is a very strange one. So but the Djinn are real. The Djinn are 100% real. You have to be very, very careful. I wouldn't recommend somebody just deciding to work with the Djinn. You have to build a relationship with them. Only build a relationship with them if they choose to have a relationship with you. Pushing the relationship is, like I said, it's like banging on the door of Buckingham Palace. It's probably not a good idea. So
What about I noticed that my one has been leading me down to a water portal, which I've been using, and it gets me down to the caves. I think they're at the center of the earth, and then I kind of come out into a place that seems like a little village. It seems like the Nagas are there, and it's something to do with Shiva, and I'm just wondering, is the Djinn linked to Shiva and the Nagas?
Well, I mean, the Djinn are linked to sort of like higher levels of meditation. Yeah, I mean, the Naga is a Djinn. Yeah, Shiva itself, Shiva itself is nothing. Yeah, he is everything, and he is also nothing. Yeah, okay. How the stars stay in the sky, the blackness in which they float, is the Shiva. Yeah, okay. The Shiva is the ultimate force that runs through the universe.
I guess I meant when I went into the caves of the Naga, there was a statue of Shiva there. As I passed by, I saw it.
Well, once again, you should have asked it maybe to change its energy field. And if the energy field did not change, yeah, then it may well have been a representation of Shiva. Yeah, okay. If it did change and it changed shape, then obviously it was the Djinn just giving you a statue of Shiva. But essentially, if you went down into a cave, then essentially you were going into what is called the Kaf. Yeah,
right.
Because the Kaf essentially translates to cave. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah, but this Kaf is their universe. Yeah. Okay. As well. So it's it's a vast cave.
What? Yeah. It was, and they said I couldn't go in as me. I had to go in as an animal. So I chose a big cat and went in that way.
Yeah, because essentially humans are not allowed in the Kaf,
Right,
which is the thing. The only thing I would say is that in reality you should now be working on your piety, because sort of reading pious texts like the Upanishads and stuff like that, because one doesn't really want, when one dies, to end up in the kaf, because it means that you will not, if you like, have a clean death, because you end up in the kaf with the Djinn, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So you're in a state of limbo. You are neither alive or dead, yeah? Okay?
Yeah.
And that's probably not the best place in the world to be.
Right. I also didn't see, as I was doing that, I took to doing it every day. There's a Hindu guy I was friends with. We were doing it together. He's quite spiritual, well, very spiritual. So we were doing it together. His energy helped me kind of get there as well. But I wondered about what was the point, I thought, what's the point to this?
Well, the point is essentially that it's what they call the Kundalini energy. Yeah. Okay. So essentially, you were doing some form of Kundalini exercise with him. What is now called Kundalini. I mean, essentially, Kundalini is a little bit suspect because it's only been around since sort of like 1977. So really, what you were doing is that you were doing spiritual work. And essentially how the yogoist use the Djinn is they use the Djinn to guide your sort of like Atman into levels of consciousness. Okay, yeah?
What for?
Well, so essentially you can ascend to like higher planes of consciousness. Yeah?
Right. Okay.
Okay. But like it's you need to be doing this with somebody who knows what they're doing, because as well as the Djinn taking you to a higher form of consciousness, they can just as easily take you to a lower form of consciousness. Yeah? But like, I mean, you can read about this in the Shiva Sutras, you can read about this in sort of like, the ancient sort of books of meditation, of yogic meditation, but essentially the Djinn, to a certain point, are there to assist your Atman, your soul, to get to a higher level of consciousness. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when one does this, one has to hope that that you are working with an adept, or you could end up in a lower level of consciousness, if that makes any sense.
How would that feel? It would be like a dark magic experience, I suppose, where you find yourself in entrails and all that kind of stuff.
Well, the highest level of consciousness that you can arise to is that you are no longer you.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. You are, if you like, the pixel which is part of the whole. You are the drop of rain in the ocean, which is the ocean. Yeah. You are a complete. You are one with everything. Yeah. You are completely connected. That is like the highest God realm mind. Yeah. If you are sort of pumped up with ego, and you are sort of in a different way, and you're not feeling any love, and all you're feeling is power and how fantastic you are, then essentially you are not in that realm of consciousness. Yeah, it's only when you feel the universal, the God mind love, the universal love is like another trap. But when you feel the God mind love, when you cannot distinguish between yourself and the pulsing of the love, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't distinguish between the two, then that is the highest state of consciousness. Say probably, if we look at the Kabbalah, you're probably looking at sort of like between like probably the highest level of Tiphareth before you get to like the Godhead. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So I mean that's one thing to understand, that when you are meditating, I mean essentially when one is meditating at that level, it's very, very painful. Because the first thing to die is like, if you like, your astral self. You can actually feel that pull away from your body. Yeah, you feel the ego pull away from your body, and you feel everything that essentially is connecting to earth pull away from your body. Yeah. And then once that actually happens, you then have a choice. And you can either you usually go through a portal into a realm of consciousness. And usually when you go through that portal into the realm of consciousness, you lose consciousness for a moment, and then you wake up in the new realm of consciousness. Generally speaking, when you've reached that level of attainment, that you have ceased to be. Yeah. You are one with the universe, yeah, so to speak. Yes. Okay. But then one has to then, if they can, because it's very, very difficult, to try and move beyond that and try and move towards the Godhead. Yeah. Okay. I mean, there are people who can do that. There is a stage beyond the Godhead, ironically. It's called the mirror stage, but very few people attend that kind of enlightenment in this lifetime. There are a few who can do it, but there's not that many.
Well, Lisa, do you want to ask questions?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to know more about, I meditate a lot, and I have had visions, and I have had messages come to me through meditation many times, and I'm almost wondering if that's my Djinn trying to communicate with me. How do you tell if that is what it is, if that's a Djinn? I've also had things come up missing, like you were describing, like my keys. I've literally had that happen, and different little things around the house. How can you tell if that is a Djinn that's doing it, or if it's something else that's doing it? Are there certain little things that you can tell? I do practice divination. Is there a way through that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is
I'm just a friend that's trying to communicate with me.
Well, ironically, the stealing will definitely be Djinn. It will be a child Djinn. That's 100%, because essentially it will be having fun with you. Yeah. Now the message is, remember, you're surrounded by maybe 100 Djinn at a time. So there's lots of messages coming through, and some of them will, if you like, lie to you. Some of them will tell you the truth. The way that you find out which is the truth is essentially the messages that you are getting, which do not bolster the ego, which do not make you feel fantastic, which don't make you feel sort of like superhuman. Generally speaking, they are the correct messages. The ones that make you think, wow, I'm the greatest person on earth, wow, I'm this, I'm that, they're usually the false messages. Yeah.
Okay.
So if the message tends to be ego-based, then generally speaking, it's a false message. Because remember that in the realm of in the super realms of consciousness, the only true power is love. Yeah. So if you're getting a message about, wow, you're a great tennis player, you're this, you're that, you're the other, you're the most fantastic magician on the earth, etc., you can guarantee that that's a Djinn trying to manipulate you. Okay, this is where the free will comes in. Okay?
Do you think? Sorry, a question popped up into my mind. Do you think that Moses was talking to a Djinn? The burning bush.
He was talking to the burning bush, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, one can presume, because he was talking to the burning bush, that he was talking to some kind of entity which is, relative to what we understand Djinn being. However, sort of like we understand that Moses was a magician. I mean, if you look at early. And he was in contact with the Djinn. If you look at early sculptures of Moses, he has got horns. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And in the Bible, they describe him as having horns. So, so the question is was Moses part Djinn? In the same way that sort of, was it Balkis, or the Queen of Sheba was a Djinn?
What, have Djinn got horns?
Yeah.
All of them? All of them?
Pretty much, yeah. If you're ever
Why is
possessed
that
by,
then?
it's part and parcel of how they look. I mean, essentially, when you see a Djinn proper, they are quite frightening. Yeah.
So there's a
But
true form then. There's like an
Yeah.
actual true form of them, and they can also appear as other things.
Yes, absolutely. But when you see them in their true form, they are quite horrific. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, for example, you often get people talking to Djinn masters and saying, "I want to see a Djinn," and they'll tell you, "You don't want to see a Djinn." They're absolutely horrific, and they are horrific. When I was possessed by one, I looked in the mirror, and I could see the horns and everything on me. Yeah. And it took me something like 6 weeks to get rid of it, but it was really horrific looking in the mirror and not seeing me, but just seeing something with horns and really quite vile, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah.
Do you think that the Djinn could have sent those plagues or not?
What do you mean, plagues?
The
In the Bible.
ones- yeah,
The biblical plagues.
yeah.
Well, it's always a difficult one with the Bible because the Bible is written in code. Yeah. It's I mean, the whole Bible is a code. Are they really plagues, or are they just descriptions of what the Pharaoh was going through? Yeah. Okay. We're talking, sort of thousands of years, so we don't know. But generally speaking, yeah, if a Djinn gets into you're going to go through all those emotions that it is describing in the Bible. Seriously, because essentially that's what they do. If there is one that is going to attack you, then essentially, that's how they do it. They suck on your energy if they're going to attack you. If one has been sent to attack you, etc., etc. If another, sort of Djinn master has decided you are not a nice person and they're gonna hurt you, then you will go through all those emotions that you have seen.
So actually, that movie Hellraiser was about the Djinn.
Well, it was certainly about an aspect of them. I mean, that's what Descartes was saying, wasn't he? He says, don't think of them as angels, see them, don't see them as demons, see them as angels setting you free. Generally speaking, what they try and do is separate the flesh from the body, yeah, so that the soul can be released, yeah. Okay. But once again, it's the Djinn are extremely dangerous. Like if you get it wrong, then you end up being captured by the Djinn, and you spend eternity being used by them to do nothing else but destroy other Djinn. Because the human soul is indestructible. Okay, yeah. So they use that power to destroy other Djinn. Yeah, and there is nothing you can do about it. Like I've spoken to sort of third generation Sufi who actually speak about this, and they say that, if you fall for that trap and you end up in that realm of consciousness, you end up in the kaf and you end up imprisoned in the kaf, there is nothing you can do about it. I mean, this is why the Catholics pray for the dead. Because essentially, depending what sort of life you've had, you could end up in this realm of consciousness where you are not dead, you are not alive, but you are being used every day just to purely destroy things. You know, I mean that is a very concrete fact about dealing with things like the Djinn. If you don't deal with them properly. Sorry.
Could that be like purgatory?
No, it's well, I suppose, yeah. In a loose term, it could be purgatory, yeah. But essentially, purgatory you escape from. But I mean, this is a Catholic Church thing. I mean, this is essentially that the Djinn snatch your soul. Usually, it's done with a pact, and it's done with a blood pact. All right, okay. So you offer the Djinn your blood, yeah. Okay. Remember, your soul is in the blood. You offer the Djinn your blood. It gives you the car of your dreams, the money, the lifetime of your dreams. When you die, you then go into the realm of the Kaf, where you are used simply as a weapon, yeah, against your will, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a very concrete fact about the Djinn. They don't speak about it because essentially not many people know about it, but if you speak to the higher depths, the higher depths will speak to you about that, and that's why they don't make blood pacts. And the really higher depths have learned how to use their soul to control the Djinn. For example, in Kundalini exercises and stuff like that, they are controlling the Djinn with their soul, because the Djinn do not have the soul. The human is stronger than the Djinn. Okay, because we have the eternal soul. The Djinn don't have that, but what they want is they want that eternal soul. Okay, hence that's where the Faust thing comes from, is that they want your soul because essentially they can use it. They can't have it, but they can use it. You know?
So they sound like fallen angels.
Well, I mean, sort of, your fallen angels.
Well, hang on. So they live beneath the earth, and that's where the fallen angels were cast.
No, they don't. No, they live in the Kaf. They live in the Kaf. The Kaf is a type of a cave.
There you go. It's kind of underneath, isn't it?
Oh no, it's a cave, right? They live in a cave. Yeah. The cave surrounds the earth. Okay.
Okay.
It surrounds the earth.
They still sound like fallen angels to me.
Well, I mean, your fallen angels were angels which went against God. The Djinn were on the earth first. Yeah,
right.
This is where.
But didn't Iblis go against God? Didn't Iblis?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we spoke about this before. I mean, Iblis was one of was essentially what happened was that Iblis and the Djinn were put on the earth first before man. Okay, and the Iblis and the Djinn were quite happy on earth. They got earth to a state where it was like level and it was, sort of safe to be on, etc., etc. And then man was introduced. Yes. Okay. And of course, sort of like they were a bit surprised. They were like, well, we thought we had earth, not man. And of course, Iblis would not bend to man.
Why should he? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was his attitude. Why should I bend to the monkey with anxiety? Yeah.
Exactly.
But the monkey with anxiety has the soul. The Djinn is made of the Djinn is made of smokeless fire. Yeah. Okay. If you ever contact Djinn, I mean, essentially, the first thing that you feel is extreme heat. I mean, really extreme heat. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But then you then get into the more complicated side of angels and fallen angels and stuff like that. But the Djinn are nothing to, really, they're nothing to do with fallen angels. The angels are the ones who decided that, like, they were no longer going to listen to God, so to speak. They decided that
there's
they
a similarity,
would go their own way.
though, is there? there's a similarity, isn't there? Massive.
Well, not really. Jinn have no form. Yeah,
Right.
they can take any form. Where your angels, that they have a form which is
What
nothing
about
like one.
Iblis? Isn't Iblis maybe an angel?
It's a really complicated one. I mean, sort of like he was treated as an angel. Yeah, he was one of God's favorites. But the minute he didn't sort of bow down to man, the monkey with anxiety, then he was sort of like trapped on the earth. Yeah, okay. I mean, this is where you get into really, really complicated biblical stuff, because they don't tell you a lot of things about the earth. But according to sort of like ancient biblical texts, the stars that we understand, they're actually floating in water. Okay, yeah. The earth is in like a bubble, and underneath the earth there is like another filament. Yeah, I mean, there are cases where scientists have sent probes down, and they have found that the probes can only go so far. Yeah, there seems to be some kind of resistance there. I mean, literally, you take your money, you pay your choice. But this story is not just in the Bible. This story goes right the way through many ancient studies that the earth is literally surrounded by water. Yeah, okay, and we are, if you like, in this kind of sphere, if you like, floating in this sort of strange substance. And you can read about it in the Bible. You can read about it in many, many ancient texts. So
the strange substance. Where is it in the Bible about the strange substance?
I don't know. It's a long time since I read it. I'll send it to you when I find it. But yeah, I mean, there's it does speak about that. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa. Oh shit. That's the end, you guys.
Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry for that.
Sorry. Sorry, Lisa. You're just about to come in. It's really short. Went really quickly. Thank you for being a great guest, Brian. Time really flew.
Okay, you have a good night, everybody. All right?
Thank you for listening.
Good night.
Good night. See you soon.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
You going back in? There's still men out there. God damn. When I go home, people ask me, "Hey, Hoot, why do you do it, man? Why? You some kind of war junkie?" I won't say a goddamn word. Why? They won't understand. They won't understand why we do it. They won't understand it's about the men next to you. And that's it. That's all it is.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, #1 listener-supported radio, the printing press for freedom at a time when freedom is needed the most.
I am Bill Johnson. Some consider my efforts to be an underground law school. I am not an attorney, and I do not give legal advice. I teach. That's lawful and legal. Consider yourself served. You are to appear Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, Studio A. My forte? Foreclosure and contract law. Grab your legal pad and pen. Learn a broad spectrum of law spanning administrative, criminal, family, tort,